Detective Gillis did have an encounter, as we know, with Mr. Scottie Scheffler. Detective Gillis should have turned on his body-worn camera, but did not. His failure to do so is a violation of the LMPD policy on uniforms and equipment, subject category body-worn camera, and he was sustained for a violation of the policy 4.31.6 procedures and 4.31.7 operation.
The world #1 golfer was in the back of a police car in handcuffs at 6 a.m., and what he said to that officer was never supposed to reach the public. This is not about a traffic misunderstanding. This is about a 4-charge felony arrest, including second-degree assault of a police officer, happening to the reigning Masters champion on the morning of a major championship round, with a mugshot circulating globally, a detective who violated department policy by not activating his body camera, and a third video that sat on Facebook for 12 days before anyone found it. That video is the one that ended this case, and it contains a conversation between Scheffler and an officer that tells you everything the police report tried to hide. Honestly, I think what happened outside Valhalla on May 17, 2024 was one of the most consequential miscarriages of sporting justice in modern golf history, and the detective at the center of it faced almost no accountability for what he did. Was Scottie Scheffler the victim of a chaotic morning that spun out of control? Or did his impatience and the fact that he is the world #1 create a situation that a different player would never have survived? Drop it in the comments right now. And if you want the full breakdown of everything in that police car video the mainstream press glossed over, subscribe, because the details in that conversation are extraordinary.
May 17, 2024, 5 a.m., Louisville, Kentucky. A man named John Mills was working as a vendor at the 2024 PGA Championship at Valhalla Golf Club. He attempted to cross Shelbyville Road, the main road leading to the venue, and was struck and killed by a shuttle bus. It was a tragedy. It happened before most players had even woken up for the day's round, and it set off a chain of events that would, within 90 minutes, produce one of the most surreal images in the history of professional sport. Louisville Metro Police Department officers responded to the fatal accident. They closed Shelbyville Road. Traffic backed up for miles. The PGA Championship's second round was delayed by 1 hour and 20 minutes. By 6 a.m., the road outside Valhalla's entrance was a scene of red and blue flashing lights, police officers in rain gear, traffic backed up in both directions, and a steady drizzle falling on what had become a chaotic pre-dawn situation. Detective Brian Gillis of the LMPD was directing traffic at the entrance to Valhalla. He was wearing his police uniform and a yellow reflective rain jacket. At approximately 6 a.m., a marked PGA Championship player's courtesy vehicle arrived in the traffic flow, driven by the reigning Masters champion and world #1 player. Scottie Scheffler was late for his tee time. He had been stuck in the traffic backup caused by the accident. At some point, according to eyewitness ESPN reporter Jeff Darlington, who was also stuck in the traffic, Scheffler moved his vehicle forward, past Detective Gillis, who was attempting to direct him to stop. What happened in the next 90 seconds produced 4 criminal charges: second-degree assault of a police officer, a felony; third-degree criminal mischief, a misdemeanor; reckless driving, a misdemeanor; disregarding traffic signals from an officer, a misdemeanor. Scheffler was detained at the entrance to Valhalla at 6 a.m. He was booked into the Louisville Metropolitan Department of Corrections at 7:28 a.m. He was released on his own recognizance at 8:40 a.m. He arrived back at Valhalla roughly 30 minutes later, changed his clothes, ate breakfast, visited the driving range, and teed off at his rescheduled time of 10:08 a.m. The world #1 walked off the 18th green after his second round at a major championship, having been booked into a Kentucky jail at 7:28 that morning. 3 videos would eventually surface, 2 released by LMPD at a press conference, a pole camera across the street, and a police dash cam, and a third posted quietly to Facebook the same day the LMPD held its press conference that nobody found for 12 days. That third video, of Scheffler talking to an officer inside the police car, is the one that ended everything, and it is the one the mainstream press has never fully examined.
Scottie Scheffler is the reigning Masters champion, the world #1, a player defined publicly by faith, composure, and a kind of quiet grace that makes the image of him in an orange Louisville Department of Corrections jumpsuit almost physically jarring to process. He is not someone known for confrontations. He is not someone who creates scenes. He is not someone who, in 151 career PGA Tour starts, has produced a single moment of genuine controversy. But in the back of that police car on the morning of May 17, 2024, sitting in handcuffs, having just been booked into a Kentucky jail on a felony assault charge, Scottie Scheffler said things to the officer with him that were not supposed to reach the public. The video was posted to Facebook by a bystander. It sat there for 12 days while the LMPD held press conferences, released official footage, and prosecuted the case. Golf Digest's Alex Myers found it and shared it on X. It spread immediately. and within 24 hours of its discovery, every charge against Scottie Scheffler had been dropped. Here is exactly what Scheffler said in that police car, in sequence, as confirmed across CBS Sports, Yahoo Sports, Fox News, and the AP. First, acknowledging what happened. Yes, you're right, I should have stopped. Then explaining his state of mind. I did get a little bit impatient because I'm quite late for my tea time. Then describing what Detective Gillis did as Scheffler's car moved past him. As he was reaching in the car, he grabbed my shoulder and hit me. And he described it. It seemed to be a little over-aggressive because the entrance was open. And then the sentence that explains everything about that morning. The sentence that tells you exactly what Scheffler understood and didn't understand in those 90 chaotic seconds. I was afraid he was going to start hitting me, and I didn't know who he was. He didn't tell me he was a police officer. All I saw was a yellow jacket. Imagine it is 6 a.m. You are the world number one. You are late for the second round of a major championship. The road in front of you is chaos. Flashing lights, rain, police cars, traffic backed up for miles because a man has died nearby. You have been sitting in that traffic for a long time. You are in a marked PGA Championship player vehicle. At some point you see movement and you are directed through by one officer. Then another figure in a yellow reflective jacket appears at your window and starts grabbing at your car in the rain and darkness. You don't know who he is. You don't know what he wants. You move forward slowly. He reaches in and grabs your shoulder. In that 90-second window, what would you do? Here is the question the LMPD press conference never answered. Scheffler said he was proceeding as directed by one officer when a second officer, Detective Gillis, in a yellow rain jacket, intervened. His attorney Steve Romines confirmed this. Scheffler was proceeding as directed by another traffic officer and driving a marked player's vehicle with credentials visible. Multiple eyewitnesses confirmed it. If Scheffler was waved through by one officer and then stopped by a second, which officer was giving the correct instruction? And why was Detective Gillis, the officer at the center of a felony assault charge, the only officer on the scene who failed to activate his body camera? That is not a coincidence. That is a policy violation. LMPD Police Chief Jacqueline Gwynn Villarreal confirmed it publicly. She said Detective Gillis received corrective action for violating department policy by failing to activate his body camera. Corrective action for the officer who filed a felony assault charge against the world's #1 athlete and then provided no body cam footage of the alleged assault. Was the LMPD's handling of this case a felony charge with no body cam footage, a dropped case 12 days later, and corrective action for the arresting officer, an acceptable response to what happened outside Valhalla? Or did the most powerful law enforcement agency in Louisville face almost zero accountability for nearly derailing the career of an innocent man? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one.
Now let's talk about the evidence the LMPD released publicly. Because the gap between what the police report claimed happened and what the released videos actually showed is the most important part of this story that nobody has connected fully. The police report stated this about Detective Gillis and Scheffler's vehicle. Subject refused to comply and accelerated forward, dragging Detective Gillis to the ground. That is the statement that produced the felony charge. That is the statement that put Scheffler in handcuffs. That is the statement that produced a booking photo and a mugshot and an orange jumpsuit. The LMPD released 2 videos at their press conference, a pole camera across the street and a police dash cam. When those videos circulated, golf fans immediately spotted the critical discrepancy. According to AOL's reporting on the released footage, the video showed Scheffler coming to a stop after an officer ran toward him, and then being taken out of the car a few moments later. The dragging the police report described? Not visible in the footage. Front Office Sports posted the footage to X with a direct caption. Scheffler appears to turn and stop immediately when chased by police. And CNN analyst and eyewitness Bob Wischusen, who witnessed the entire incident, described what he saw this way, as reported by Sportskita. When Scheffler drove past him, the cop got very angry pursuing the car. My impression was he was kind of running alongside chasing the car, and maybe he tripped and fell. I mean, there was kind of an outcropping or median, by the front gate. And keep in mind, it was raining. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. It was dark. Maybe he tripped and fell. That sentence from an eyewitness on the scene tells you the entire story of how Detective Gillis' wrist and knee injuries may have actually occurred. Not because Scheffler dragged him, because Gillis was running, in the rain, in the dark, on a wet surface near a median, at 6 a.m., in pursuit of a slowly moving vehicle that had already stopped. Now here's the part nobody is talking about. The felony charge against Scheffler, second-degree assault of a police officer, carried the kind of legal exposure that could have had implications not just for a tournament round, but for his entire career status. A felony conviction can affect a person's ability to travel internationally. It can affect visa applications. Scheffler competes globally. The Open Championship, the European Tour stops, Olympic qualification. Every international appearance on his schedule would have required a fresh legal calculation. You are the world #1. You are cleared of all charges. The case is dropped with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled. The prosecutor, Jefferson County Attorney Mike O'Connell, stands at a podium and says, "Based upon the totality of the evidence, my office cannot move forward in the prosecution of the charges filed against Mr. Scheffler. Mr. Scheffler's characterization that this was a big misunderstanding is corroborated by the evidence. The detective who filed the felony assault charge without activating his body camera receives corrective action. No further discipline was reported. No public accountability hearing. No independent review of the charging decision. The officer, who produced a felony assault report based on an incident that multiple eyewitnesses and 3 separate videos failed to corroborate, received corrective action. And Scheffler, who spent time in a jail cell, had his mugshot distributed globally, was booked in an orange jumpsuit, and had to tee off in the second round of a major championship 5 hours after that booking, said in his statement, "Police officers have a difficult job, and I hold them in high regard." Did Detective Gillis face appropriate consequences for filing a felony assault charge without body cam footage? Or did the LMPD's corrective action response represent the bare minimum of accountability for what was done to an innocent man? And does Scheffler's gracious public statement make it harder or easier for the LMPD to avoid a harder reckoning? Drop it below.
Before you conclude this story is entirely straightforward, there is one voice who offered a genuinely different perspective, and he is not the person you would expect. ESPN's Jeff Darlington was physically on the scene. He witnessed the incident in real time. He was the journalist who broke the story on SportsCenter, whose description of events set the initial public narrative. He described on air watching Scheffler in handcuffs, stunned, looking toward him and saying, "Please help me." But Darlington also described the situation at the entrance to Valhalla as genuinely chaotic, not a situation of clear-cut police misconduct. He characterized Scheffler's actions as continuing to drive slowly, with the officer attached, and described the arrest as moving very quickly, very rapidly, very aggressively. He did not say Scheffler was entirely without fault. He said it was a misunderstanding. He said it from the scene. And one officer at the scene, not identified, told Darlington directly, "Right now, he's going to jail. He's going to jail and there ain't nothing you can do about it." That officer was right. And the law enforcement machinery that produced a felony charge, a booking, a mugshot, and a Kentucky jail cell was operating exactly as it is designed to operate. The question is not whether it operated correctly in terms of procedure. The question is whether the underlying facts justified triggering that machinery in the first place. The PGA Tour's response to Scheffler's arrest is worth examining historically. When Commissioner Jay Monahan was told his world number 1 had been arrested on a felony charge at 6 a.m. on the morning of a major round, the tour's position was effectively get him to the tee box. No statement of support, no press conference, no immediate public advocacy for a player who, as would be proven 12 days later, had done nothing criminally wrong. The tour managed its media exposure. It did not manage its players' dignity. Scheffler himself said he never name-dropped himself during the arrest. He did not invoke his status, his title, his ranking, his major championship. He sat in the police car and said, "I should have stopped, and I was quite late for my tee time." That is a man trying to be reasonable at 6 a.m. in handcuffs in the back of a police car on the morning of his major championship round. The tour issued a statement hours later saying it was cooperating with law enforcement, which is exactly the kind of language that protects the organization's legal position and says precisely nothing about the human being in the orange jumpsuit who was about to birdie the 10th hole. Here is why the timing of the charge dismissal matters, and why the 12-day window between the arrest and the drop charges reveals something about how this entire situation was managed. The LMPD held their press conference and released the poll camera and dash cam footage on May 23, 6 days after the arrest. At that press conference, Police Chief Gwen Villaroyal acknowledged that Gillis had not activated his body camera. She acknowledged the corrective action. She released the footage that showed no visible dragging. That same day, a third video, posted to Facebook by a bystander, showed Scheffler's conversation with the officer inside the police car. That video sat on Facebook for 6 more days before Golf Digest's Alex Myers found it on X. That is 12 days total from arrest to discovery of the most important piece of evidence in the case. Jefferson County Attorney Michael Connell dropped all 4 charges on May 29, 2024, exactly 12 days after the arrest. The charges were dropped with prejudice. The prosecutor's exact statement, "Scheffler's actions do not satisfy the elements of any criminal offenses." Not, "we lack sufficient evidence." Not, "there are extenuating circumstances." His actions do not satisfy the elements of any criminal offense. That is the prosecutor saying this should never have been charged. The last time a major sports figure was charged with a felony assault of a law enforcement officer and had all charges dropped within 12 days, with the prosecutor publicly stating the underlying conduct never constituted a crime, most legal analysts described it as an extraordinary and relatively rare outcome. The system that produced a felony charge in 90 seconds took 12 days to unwind it, and it only unwound when a Facebook video that nobody was looking for surfaced by accident. That is not justice moving efficiently. That is justice moving only when evidence that couldn't be suppressed finally emerged.
Here's what this story is actually about, and it goes far beyond Scottie Scheffler, Valhalla, and a yellow rain jacket at 6 a.m. The LMPD charged the world #1 golfer with a felony assault based on the account of a single officer who had violated department policy by not activating his body camera. They held a press conference. They released partial video that contradicted their own police report. They gave the arresting officer corrective action,
and they dropped all charges 12 days later when a Facebook video surfaced that showed Scheffler calmly, clearly, and honestly describing a chaotic situation that no objective viewer of the evidence could categorize as criminal assault. The only reason those charges were dropped is because a bystander posted a video to Facebook and a golf journalist happened to find it. If that video had not been found, the case would have gone to arraignment on June 3rd. Scheffler would have hired lawyers, the discovery process would have taken months, his international travel would have been scrutinized for every tournament outside the United States, his sponsors would have had legal teams reviewing force majeure clauses, his life would have been running in parallel to a criminal defense that the evidence never supported. Is the LMPD's handling of this case, felony charge, no body cam, contradictory released footage, dropped charges 12 days later, corrective action for the arresting officer, the kind of accountability standard that should apply to a law enforcement agency charging a citizen with a violent felony? And does it matter that the citizen in this case was the world #1 golfer with the resources to fight back? Because most people charged with second-degree assault of a police officer do not have Steve Ramines as their attorney, and they do not have Golf Digest journalists searching Facebook for their exculpatory video. You are not Scottie Scheffler. You don't have a PGA Tour legal team. You don't have a high-profile attorney. You don't have Golf Digest scanning social media for evidence. You don't have ESPN's Jeff Darlington as an eyewitness telling SportsCenter you looked very stunned and said, "Please help me." If those charges had been filed against you based on the same evidence, the same body cam failure, the same contradicted police report, where would you be on day 13? Was the LMPD's handling of Scheffler's arrest a one-off failure in an extraordinary situation, or is it evidence of a systemic problem with how law enforcement agencies manage charging decisions when body cameras aren't activated? And to Scheffler's gracious response, "Police officers have a difficult job and I hold them in high regard," let the LMPD off the hook too easily? Drop your answer right now. Here is what happened after the charges were dropped, and this is where the story of who Scottie Scheffler actually is gets told most clearly. He returned to the 2024 PGA Championship after his arraignment postponement was rendered moot by the charge dismissal. He played all 4 rounds at Valhalla. He shot a 3rd round of 65, one of the best rounds of the entire championship field. He finished tied for 8th place. He then went on to win 5 tournaments in 2025. He won the American Express in January 2026 for his 20th PGA Tour title. He has not finished outside the top 25 in a single PGA Tour event in all of 2026. He never publicly attacked Detective Gillis. He never called out the LMPD. He thanked law enforcement for the work they do. He called it a big misunderstanding, and he said he should have stopped. That is the person who was put in an orange jumpsuit and booked into a Kentucky jail on the morning of a major championship round for actions that a prosecutor would later confirm never constituted any criminal offense. The final verdict is simple. The system failed Scottie Scheffler on May 17, 2024. He didn't fail the system. He didn't fight the system. He sat in a police car and told the truth, calmly, at 6 a.m. in handcuffs. And the truth, when it finally surfaced on Facebook 12 days later, was exactly what he said it was. The video nobody was meant to see changed everything, because the truth nobody was meant to know was already on the record. It just needed someone to find it. If you want the full breakdown of what this incident reveals about the PGA Tour's duty of care to their players and which other situations have exposed the same institutional silence, subscribe. Because this pattern of the tour protecting the product while the player absorbs the damage goes deeper than Valhalla, and this story is not over.